Everyone can sort of take a seat, and we will continue. So I really hope that you had very successful breakout groups. The process the journey that we went through today with all the various different presenters and guides on the road here has been absolutely incredible. Just amazing people, just because they're so dedicated and connected to what they're doing. And we're gonna do the close up now. However, we got two more pieces, two more presenters, two more guides along the road here that we're really excited about. And I would like to now introduce, and again, the full bio is on the QR code, is Rebecca Fischer from the New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. So Rebecca?
Yeah.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for having me today. I'm so thrilled that so many of you stuck around for the entire conference and are here for this closing. A huge thanks to the Jewish Community Relations Council and the Federation of New York for hosting this conference. It's really such a privilege to be here with so many faith and community leaders from across the city. My name is Rebecca Fischer, and I'm the Executive Director of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence. And of course, I was invited here today to speak to you about the work that we do and how we can work together now to make our communities safer. But I'll be honest, in most contexts, I don't spend that much time in my professional life talking about my own identity or my own personal experiences, largely because I think it's more important to center others in this conversation, the most impacted survivors of gun violence. But here today, I am going to share a little bit more about who I am and how I ended up in this work. In addition to being the leader of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, I am also a lawyer, and I went to law school in Manhattan. I'm a parent, and I live with my two children, 12 and 8, in Brooklyn. I'm also Jewish and a proud member of my synagogue and community in Brooklyn, Congregation Beth Elohim. CBE and its leadership have been central to my family's life. Both of my children have their brises there. They both went to preschool there and go to Hebrew school there. And in exactly a month, my older son will celebrate his bar mitzvah there as well. But in addition to all of that, my synagogue and our Jewish community is also where I first started to learn about the gun violence crisis. My Jewish community is where I was first inspired to devote my career to being a partner in this work. I give you this context not as a faith leader and certainly not as a spokesperson on behalf of the Jewish people. Last night I attended an event and had the opportunity to speak directly with Congressman Jerry Nadler. I told him I was speaking at this event for JCRC and that I would be giving this speech. And together we agreed that no community by race, religion, or any other identity is a monolith. And that is certainly true within the Jewish community as well. No one leader represents all of the values of any collective. And so I give you this context as one Jewish person who is deeply committed to safety, equity, and justice, and because my faith in community and humanity is what drives me every single day. As of 2012, I did not work on gun safety or gun violence or in politics or on policy. I was a lawyer practicing law at a small labor and employment law firm in Midtown. I was also a young mother with a 2-year-old just trying to figure it all out. And then one Friday in December, I was working from home and I received an email from my firm's office administrator. She notified us that there was an active shooter at our colleague's child's school. The shooting had not hit the media yet. It was not yet the Sandy Hook mass shooting that killed 20 children and 6 adults. It was a notification that there was a gunman at my colleague's child's school in Newtown, Connecticut. And then she texted me that she did not know whether her 7-year-old was alive. Thank God, her son survived that day. He was not in the classroom that was gunned down. He was across the hall, hiding under his desk. He was covering his ears as the shooter screamed and fired. He was escorted out by the police with his hands over his eyes and then his hands up. He made it through, And just this week, my former colleague and now good friend called me and told me that in the fall, her son will be beginning his freshman year at Cornell University. And so this is where my work began. I don't usually share all of this, and here's why. My work began when 26, mostly white children and educators were gunned down in a suburb of Connecticut. I was, and am, a Jewish white woman. And at that time, I did not know many people who had been directly impacted by gun violence. I did not fear daily gun violence in my neighborhood. I had not yet had to grieve with mothers and fathers who had been impacted by gun violence. I had not yet called upon my national and local lawmakers to enact gun violence solutions. I was a young, well-meaning person who had not yet done the work that must be done. But alas, that is where my work began, and the key is beginning. I was overwhelmed with rage and sadness in the face of gun violence, and I desperately wanted to do something. I just did not know how. And then I received the call to action from my synagogue, an invitation to meet at the temple and talk, to form a social justice committee to advocate for gun violence solutions. And so I went to the meeting. That meeting was in the basement rotunda of CBE on a very cold winter night, led to volunteer organizing at local schools. That meeting led to me reaching out to New Yorkers Against Gun Violence for more information about gun laws. That meeting led me to the Crown Heights Mediation Center, now known as Neighbors in Action. That meeting led me to realize that I was not doing enough. That meeting led me to recognize my own ignorance and negligence as a human and as a Jew. Children and adults were dying from gun violence only miles away from me in Brooklyn and in neighborhoods across New York City. Families were burying their loved ones on a daily basis while I was commuting off to a law firm. And then, after several years of growing, of partnering, of showing up, of listening, of saying the wrong thing to learn the right thing, I was hired as the executive director of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, an organization that was founded by volunteer organizers 30 years ago. New Yorkers Against Gun Violence is a state-focused organization that not only says we need to approach gun violence comprehensively and holistically, we actually do it. We advocate for strong, sensible gun violence prevention laws and programs at the state, local, and federal levels. And we strongly support community-led initiatives and also have our own Credible Messenger program that's school-focused and provides victims support. Our school program, Reaction, provides social and emotional support to youth victims of gun violence, their families, and their schools. And I would love, at some point in the near future, to introduce all of you to our education team who live and are from the communities that we serve. We know that not one policy, program, or initiative is going to end the gun violence crisis. We need many. And in New York, as I know you've discussed today, we have strong gun violence prevention leadership. And as a result, we have one of the strongest gun violence prevention laws and programs in the country, and some of the lowest gun death and injury rates. But New Yorkers, primarily Black and brown New Yorkers, are still being killed and injured by shootings each year, largely because of the national gun trafficking crisis. Over 70% of guns used in these shootings are trafficked from weak gun law states into our most under-resourced, vulnerable communities in New York and all over the country. And these guns are disproportionately impacting Black and brown communities. So yes, we do need to continue to advocate for strong, comprehensive federal gun laws. We need a universal background check system and to ban assault weapons. We need laws that keep guns away from domestic abusers and require gun owners to lock up their guns to keep children and individuals in crisis safe. But while we keep pressing a dysfunctional Congress to do the right thing, there is so much more that we can do right here in our own city and in our own state, and lobbying for strong federal gun laws is simply not enough. At the state level, we need your help advocating for more funding for community and school anti-violence gun programs. We need better support for victims of gun violence, including equitable access to the state's compensation fund. We also need to invest in more resources, in more housing and healthcare and education. And we know, even based on the discussions today, that there's a direct correlation between communities that are disproportionately impacted by these systemic inequities and the gun violence crisis. We also need to support community-based organizations with straight-up cash, private and public, Organizations like CAVI, the 67 Clergy Council, and many others that are here today and are not here today. And finally, we as faith leaders, lawmakers, community members, and as New Yorkers must fight for safety and also for justice. No one wants to live among violence. We all deserve to be safe. But often the most equitable solutions to solving public safety take long-term investment and resources, and the reactive approaches that are faster, like incarceration and high penalties, are not only ineffective, they're also harmful. For those of us who do not live in a community that's impacted by gun violence every day, we need to look and listen outward. We know that Jews are targeted by gun violence, hate crimes, and white supremacy, and the persistent surge of anti-Semitic hate crimes and violence towards Jews is alarming, and we must condemn it and fight it. And when it comes, though, to the broader gun violence crisis, we must also recognize that gun violence is a pervasive public health crisis, disproportionately impacting Black and Brown Americans. And in order to address it, we need to continue to listen to survivors, healthcare providers, faith leaders, policy experts, lawmakers, and others who are Black and Brown. I say all of this and urge you to act, not only as the leader of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, but also as one Jew who has unwavering faith in our communities, our capacity to take collective action, and our power to end gun violence and to make this country safer for all of us. Thank you.